Thank you. Good afternoon. This is such a beautiful place to have such a lecture, and it's a shame that you could not be here with me to go through this lecture with me. And we can blame everything on the COVID-19 pandemics, and that's basically the topic that I would like to cover in my lecture today. Well, I'm trying to cover two very important and hot topics of today. They are COVID-19 pandemics and human security. But the reason why I brought these topics is for you to expand your concept of security. And by expanding our concept, we could see the global trends and also be introduced to the new concept called human security. Although we hear a lot, we're not quite sure what human security is. And we would like to cover like the elements of human security for you to have a fuller understanding of the concept itself. And this is what global affairs really deals with. And that's why I found human security a very important topic for this sample lecture. I would like to really cover global governance and security institutions at the end in search for solutions, because always global problems call for global solutions. And that's exactly the curriculum that we have at Global Affairs, try to see how international cooperation can help to resolve some of the global concerns. Well, my name is Soyoung Kwon. I'm a professor of global affairs at George Mason University, Korea. I also direct the Center for Security Policy Studies, Korea, which is a branch center that deal with security policy and studying security issues. And the main center is in our main campus in Arlington at the Schar School of Policy and Government. Well, you probably see a little thing tab next to my PhD, and some people ask me this question. So in order to save you from asking me this question, I will explain. Tab actually comes from those people who graduated or got a degree from Cambridge. And usually when you get a degree from Oxford, then you get Oxon next to it. So that's something new for you to learn today. Well, when I studied in Cambridge, doing my PhD degree, I was mostly talking about security issues in Korea. And while I was talking about it and then studying it as an academic subject, I always felt that we probably need to bring this knowledge to the practical field so that we can find solutions to these problems together. And I guess I practiced that desires of mine by continuing in policy field, working for government, working for different international organizations. And through that experience, I encountered this new concept, human security. So I would like to share my knowledge with you today so that you will be informed of human security and you will know what you can do with this topic in the real world when you graduate and get a degree from George Mason University, Korea. When I ask what is security, and then especially I ask my audience saying what threatens you the most, those people who live in Korea would probably picture something similar to these, illustrations. Diplomatic negotiations, security issues, missiles, nuclear proliferation, or 9/11 terrorism. And we tend to think like these are most important security concepts. Like the security in the traditional sense means that we are trying to protect our state, our country, from external threats. And that's not wrong, because this has been the important security concept that dominated global politics for a long time, especially during the Cold War era. And why? It's because we tend to think that security means protecting our people, protecting our territory, and protecting our sovereignty. And that is a traditional ways of looking at security concepts here. Well, so if the traditional concept is about security, making your state secure from external military threat, then there are two key questions. One, why are they competing, not cooperating? And second question is, does security equal power? Well, within these two questions, what we try to have is a very pessimistic point of view about the world. That the world is an anarchy, it's full of uncertainty, and we don't trust each other. We are very fearful of whatever unexpected might happen in the world, and nobody will help you because there's no overarching authority in the world that can help you, so you have to rely on self help. Well, so in order to make yourself feel secure, you have to make others feel less secure. And that has been the basic concept and fundamental rules in global politics. Leaders thought that it's easier to attack other countries than defending your own country. And they tend to think that offensive and defensive weapons apart cannot be distinguished clearly. I can give you one example. If your neighbor decided to build up a big wall, then would your neighbor feel safe in that environment? Because your neighbor has a huge wall to protect himself, that will definitely make you feel insecure because you don't know what's behind that wall. And basically, this is what international politics was all about. It was trying to make yourself feel secure by making others feel less secure. But also, we tend to think security means that you are powerful because security is the ability to coerce others. It's a power to change preference of the world or other countries, and it's a power to set the global agenda. So if your country said terrorism is the most important thing in the world, then all other countries would say, okay, terrorism is the most important agenda that we have to tackle. And I think this sounds familiar to some of you. Basically, security equals power, and we compete because we can't trust each other. What's the fundamental concept we had for a long time in discussing the security issues? Then what happens? After the Cold War, new concepts started to develop because there appear new types of threats because of the new trends in the world. This is so-called non-traditional security. So new issues arrive after the Cold War. There's globalization, interconnectedness, global governance. In order to address human needs, we started to see very fast technological development, rise of non-traditional actors, and agents and actors became diversified. So it's no longer the state in the center of all the global interaction, but there are more agents, more actors being involved, including non-governmental actors. While this trend unfolds, there has been some new issues rising along with the pattern, like non-state sponsored terrorism, for one thing, clash of civilization. So different religious groups are trying to trying to have the conflict with those people who don't respect their religion or who do not respect the differences would fight. Human rights violations started to happen. New issues such as cybersecurity, because everything moved on the virtual space, so cybersecurity became a new hot threat into the new working of the world. Health issues, I'm sure everybody agrees with me at this point of time, that now that people interact more, then it's very difficult to stop the spread of viruses or disease. Also, if some kind of pandemic happens in one country, like some kind of disease spreading in one region, that it's not only going to affect one region, because now that because of the interconnectedness, the health issues becomes more diversified and quickly spread all over the world. We have an issue of global economy. If one country is having difficulty, it's not only affect that country or that region, but it's gonna be a global issues. And good example was the financial crisis of 2008. When financial crisis happened in one place, then the financial market is all interconnected and it's gonna definitely affect negatively on global economy. Environment, this is totally linked to our survival issues. And those people who live in Songdo or Korea, we do have a microdust issue from time to time. And that really is a threatening experience for many of us because we can't really breathe in the air. I mean, it really affects our daily lives. So in comparative framework, what I'm trying to say is when I ask a question, what brings security? Then if your mindset is with the traditional security concept, then you would say integrity of the border, independent control of the territory, economic wealth, military power, and preservation of vital interests. And as long as you have that, you feel secure. Do you really? Well, security is a context-based concept. So depending on where you are, which country you belong to, and what problems you're facing, I'm sure your thoughts on security will differ. I don't think you will say, oh, our country has economic wealth, therefore I feel secure. I don't think you will say, wow, our country has military power, therefore I feel secure. So what makes human feel secure? Well, if you are here today with me, I would have actually pointed at some of you to give me your answers to this question. What makes a human secure? So I'm going to ask myself, what makes me feel secure? Well, there can be many factors. It can be job. It can be the health issues. It can be belonging issues. Or it can be self-esteem issues. So I guess it really, there can be many factors that will affect us to feel secure. Now, what I would like to show you is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and this is something that lots of psychologists, especially psychology major, will encounter over and over again. So there are different types of need a human being really have to fulfill in order for them to feel secure. And I guess the basic, very basic and fundamental needs that human has to be fulfilled will be physiological. You need air, clean air, food, water, shelter, clothing, and sleep. Well, without that, you don't feel like your personal status is like being content. Feel less threatened, like feel happy in that situation. But there can be other factors too. I mean, you have to feel safe. Like there has to be the security of body, security of your employment, of resources, of the family, of health, or property. You need love and belonging. So you have to have friends, family, intimacy, sense of connections to other people. And then I guess STEM as self-actualization is a sort of different level. So I'm not going to go too much into that in terms of human security. What human security really is about probably is the bottom three layers that we would like to help individuals in the world to feel that they're safe and they have basic needs fulfilled, but they also have very sound community where they belong to. So basically, that's something that human security really deals with in my perspective. So in terms of definition, I get it from the UNDP report of 1994 because that report first mentioned this term, human security. So let me read, quote, "The concept of security has for too long been interpreted narrowly as security of territory from external aggression, or as protection of national interests in foreign policy, or as global security from the threat of a nuclear proliferation." I guess to some people, this is a very important issue. Like Koreans, for instance, we still have North Korea nuclear issues. We have rise of China as a very important factor that can change the dynamics of the region. So I guess some people, this is still important. But what UNDP wants to point out is that it's too narrow of a concept to look at security. Therefore, they continue, quoting, "It has been related more to nation states than to people, forgotten were the legitimate concerns of ordinary people who sought security in their daily lives. Human security is not a concern with weapons, it's a concern with human life and dignity." So here is the keyword for human security. We really want to concern about human life, human dignity, how they live. So it's not really about the weapon and the states, but it's about the people and ordinary people. So this is a new emerging paradigm. We try to understand global vulnerability in this sense, and we would like to focus. So to say referent for security is at human level, not at national level. So people-centered understanding of security brings a new type of concerns. And that's the concerns that would appear again and again in the global agenda. Concerns for human rights, development, equality, environment, and humanitarian action. So I guess now you have changed your perspective a little bit. It's not really about traditional security that needs to be tackled alone, but we also need to deal with human security issues as a global affairs student. People who are being global citizens should be aware of this concept of human security. So if you remember the pictures that I've shown you in the beginning of this lecture, which sort of helps our understanding of traditional security, I think these will be the picture that will help you to understand human security. We do have virus, environmental issue, the rise of sea level, terrorism, like non-state actors, terrorism, ISIS, refugee issues, and the health issues. Have you changed your perspective now? I guess you have to replace your pictures from the beginning. I would like to talk a little bit more about human security in this sense, new type of security that UN wanted to point out in order for the whole community to work together to tackle and resolve. So let me bring back the UN Development Report of 1994 in order to give you detailed and sort of categories of human security that they are talking about. Let's say realms of human security. UN brings out 7 different security concepts here as a part of big realms of human security. And this includes personal security, economic security, food security, health security, political security, community security, and environment security. So these are the 7 important key areas that they want to tackle. According to the 1994 UNDP report, human security can be said to have 2 main aspects. First, it means safety from chronic threats as hunger, disease, and repression. And second, it means protection from sudden and hurtful disruption in the pattern of daily lives, whether in homes, in jobs, or in communities. So these are the 2 factors, and they could be guaranteed within these 7 aspects. Let me just briefly go through so that you have fuller and in-depth understanding of each and every security concerns within the human security paradigm. Economic security means you have to have basic income. I mean, the previous lecture was about the minimum wage, and I guess this really falls into the economic security topic. So if you're assured basic incomes for individual, and if you have a job, you have safety net, then that means you have economic security. Now, the problem is only a quarter of the world's people are presently economically secure. So that's like 1/4 of the whole population would say we are feeling secure in the economic arena. Food security. Food security is not only about accessibility, but also distribution. So whether you can be self-sufficient, whether you have enough food and crops to feed your people is one thing, but also how that food distribution is taking place is a very important part. And most of the problem in the world now is about distribution rather than accessibility. Health security is guaranteeing a minimum protection from disease and unhealthy lifestyle. And definitely COVID-19 pandemics would come into health security, but a little bit bigger problem than just the health security. And I will explain this a bit later. Environmental security is to protect people from the short and long-term ranges of nature, man-made threat in nature, and deterioration of natural environments. So basically, having access to clean water, not having air pollution, sea level, and the rise of temperature, and greenhouse gases, global warming, all comes into this environmental security arena. Personal security is protecting people from having physical violence. So from state or external state or sub-state actors or domestic violence would all come into the personal security issues. And that's totally related to violent crimes. Community security means protecting people from the loss of traditional culture and relationship and values. Through sectarian or ethnic violences, this usually happens, and it deals with lots of ethnic groups and indigenous people as a problem of community. And finally, political security means political repression. So those people who are concerned, who has concern in living in a society where their basic human rights are not guaranteed, whether they have political repression and torture, and human rights violation during periods of political unrest. So these are the 7 security definitions that will come into the area or framework of human security. So now let us go into the real question, COVID-19 pandemics. And I want you to really think about it. You know, we tend to think COVID-19 is about health security issues. It needs to be dealt by World Health Organization because it's about the virus. If you think a little bit deeply into it, it's not only a health security issue, but it's a human security issue. Why? Because it affects every aspect of human security, as I explained before. Now, out of these 2 questions, 1, COVID-19 pandemic, is it a security threat? 2, how can we resolve this new security issue? First question is easier to answer because the answer is yes, it's a threat. It's actually threatening our lives. It's disturbing our daily pattern. As UNDP report said earlier, that 2 aspects that are considered as a human security violations all come attached to COVID-19 pandemics. It's disturbing our lives and ordinary people's lifestyle. But this is a little bit more important. If we have a bigger framework, then what we see is the scale, scope of impact of COVID-19 pandemic is unprecedented. We had SARS before, we had bird flu, we had swine flu, we had all different types of disease. And COVID-19 in particular is different in the sense that, number 1, this has been going on for more than a year without resolving it, and then the impact is that this affects all other aspects of security concerns, from individual security to economic security, to health security, and even the environmental issues. Some people say, oh, actually COVID-19 helps environmental issues because we see clearer air now because people stop having lots of activities. Well, in Korea, I go to the trash can and I see so many plastic containers that are being thrown out because we rely on delivery service these days. And we cannot really protect the world, you know, with the lifestyle that we're having in order to cope with COVID-19 situation. So if you think of it this way, let me go back to the earlier slide. It's definitely affecting economic security, food security, health security, environmental security, personal security, and even political security. Like they have to have political debates over how to tackle with COVID-19. There are polarization in terms of policy, how to tackle with this. That brings a new type of conflict. So coming back to the question whether COVID-19 pandemics is a security threat, it's not just a security threat, but it's a threat to the basic human security of the world. The second reason why this impact is unprecedented is because the threat is for everyone. Well, we just had a news that the French president got infected. Um, well, American president got infected. So basically, the world leaders get infected. Wealthy people get infected. They can even die from it. So this basically practice equal distribution out of all things in order what in terms of how they are affecting people. The threat affects everybody. And thirdly, it's very transnational. So the whole globe has been affected. So there's nowhere to go to avoid it. So in this case, COVID-19 pandemics definitely is threatening a human security problem that exists in the world. Um, well, overall, how can we solve this new security issues is a big problem too. Because in the beginning, we saw lots of rising nationalism, bringing state back, and cutting off the budget and the workings of global governance and global institutions. And that was going against the wave of globalization for some time. I mean, it brought lots of confusion in the world. And some people like sort of exaggeratively said, oh, this is the end of globalization. In fact, it's a very contradictory way of looking at who's responsible for resolving COVID-19. Is that the state or the international organization? Or it's up to individuals to protect him or herself from the pandemics? Well, I guess as a global affairs professor, at some point I was saying, oh my God, international institutions are not being very helpful, and we feel very threatened by the phenomena. So our global affairs security issue is definitely not getting international institutions resolving this issue. But I am still hopeful in terms of how we should tackle this security issues. Well, if you were here with me, I would have given you this and asked you to like fill it in to answer these questions, because these would definitely help you to understand COVID-19 situation and impact in comparison to other security issues. Because when we do security studies, we ask these 5 questions in order for us to find the underlying root causes, and in order for us to protect stakeholders, and in order for us to find the agents to resolve the issues by looking over these 5 questions. So these questions are, what is the referent object of security? If I would apply these questions to COVID-19 situation, definitely the answer to the first question is like the health security. The referent object of security here is combating viruses, stop the spread. Whose security are we talking about? We are talking about everybody's security, every individual, every human being. I guess it doesn't really affect the animals that much. So every human being is a subject to this. Therefore, we are talking about security of humans in this world. So what is that should be secure? Well, I guess at this point of time, what needs to be secure is vaccines. I think like that's the solution we found for this time. Vaccines, but also some kind of safety net so that we can have the minimum level of survival during this time of crisis. What does it mean to be secure? Well, for us to feel secure, we have to terminate the pandemics. We have to bring back the normal daily routines. So that's when we say we feel secure from COVID-19 pandemics. So how can security be achieved? And that's a sort of my last point in my lecture. As I said, who's responsible? Like, who needs to find solutions for us? Well, lots of people say states. So we look at the government. Oh, Korean government should do something. American government should do something. The global leaders should do something. But in actuality, the agent of security in dealing with human security concerns should be international organization, international community, and through international cooperation. In this world, there's so many agents that are working on human security issues. starting from the state, non-state, but also international organization, international government organization, international non-government organizations, global policy network. There are NGOs, experts and scholars, and multinational corporations. So you can see that there are multiple actors and agents who are involved in dealing with human security issues. Well, this is sort of a bigger picture. Let me go into a particular institution that deals particularly on human security issues. And that's United Nations, and United Nations fund and programs, and their agencies. So United Nations is intergovernmental institutions, so they have member states, so they could get together in order to find solutions together. Vaccine distribution, I mean, we tend to think it's a national competition, but it doesn't have to be. You can come together and then work it through to see whom we can reach first, the most vulnerables. And therefore, the cooperation can take place in this format. Second, UN funds and programs have specialized agencies for human security, but on different specific topics. Like, for instance, UNDP would deal with development issues. UNICEF would deal with children, in particular, children in need. UNHCR would deal with refugees. And WFP would deal with food issues. It's a food program. So as you can see with the UN funds and program, they deal with the different aspects of human security. Therefore, it seems like there is already a platform where international cooperation can take place. So we have been confused for a while. We were all saying, oh, COVID-19 is scary and we don't know what to do, and then all states try to solve their own problem. But in the background, there should definitely be these types of institutions come together to work it out so that in the future we can prevent it and solve it in an earlier stage. So we are going through some form of trials and errors, in my perspective. Global institutions do not die. It's just dysfunctional because of the chaotic situation, but I'm sure this platform and framework will come back. Good example of this, of specialized agencies working, would be something that you probably are familiar with. Millennium Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goals. You know, these are the goals that the global governance came up with for the whole world to look at the objectives that we are going through, what we are trying to secure, what we are trying to do. The new concept that they brought out, such as humanitarian intervention and responsibility to protect, definitely is trying to protect individual welfare more important than the states. Also, they want to take everything to be preventing the crisis from taking place rather than reacting to the problem. And most importantly, what they're trying to do is they want to address particular issues to prevent, such as war crimes or crimes against humanity or ethnic cleansing, through having this responsibility to protect so that they can have the global political commitment to address these key concerns and to be able to prevent this before things from happening. So I guess Millennium Development Goal, and now they switched to Sustainable Development Goals, is basically the agenda that we have in order for international institutions to work together to resolve the problems of global concerns. And this is what we are going to learn throughout the Global Affairs program. Well, in conclusion, in summary, I would like to give you sort of summary of how our security perception should change from traditional to non-traditional security and how they differ. To make it very quick, traditional security was very state-centric security, looking at military security, state protection, territory, and so forth. And they were very top-down approach. And the leaders in this aspect will be United States, Russia, China. When we go to non-traditional security, it's a human-centered security. And what it does is it deals with individuals' dignity and empowerment, protection. And then we look at the international community as the main actors in dealing with these issues, such as hunger, poverty, disease, environment, and so forth. It's a very bottom-up approach, so you have to work. It's not like we want government to make decision on this, but then grassroots level movement, social movement becomes very important in this aspect. There are certain countries who are leading in the human-centered security area, and they are Japan, Canada, and Norway. So as you can see, there's a clear differences between the two types of security. And I guess this is the key point for you because you have enlarged your understanding of security concept today through my lecture. Now, global affairs does not only deal with non-traditional security issues. I have to really be clear that you will be studying traditional security issues too. We will be studying international politics. We're going to study war, strategy, diplomacy, and security dilemmas. But on top of it, I would like you to think that the security that we have to deal with is not only about military, but it's also about human. So we are going to add human components to our understanding of security, and that's what we are going to learn during the classes and throughout the programs. Now, my last note, actually, when you come and join us at Global Affairs at George Mason University, Korea, academically, you're going to learn a diverse, different issues here, stretching from political, economic to anthropological, cultural issues. And you will do a lot of learning of history, geography, languages, and economics, and politics, culture, variety of issues. But we not only learn through lectures, but we're going to have lots of group discussions. You're going to have lots of assignments and research and internship through which you're going to enlarge your knowledge and apply your knowledge into the practical field. So what are we trying to do through Global Affairs program? We want to nurture you as a global human resource who cares for better human conditions, who cares to participate in the effort to seek solutions to global problems. We are going to make you to become a responsible global citizen by studying various topics of global concerns. So that's what we aim to do through this program. We have had graduates who graduated from global affairs programs, and they went into very successful career path. Some went on to do graduate studies, which is helpful because once you find your passion and interest in one of the subjects, then you have to get more professionalized knowledge. And going to graduate studies, that means you found a topic of interest so that you can bring deeper understanding of that particular issues like development, health, or global economy, or human rights, and etc. We do have graduates who went through to go and get a job at international organizations, and some international organizations and in communication and media sectors. So I guess this sort of opens up a variety of different jobs in global markets for you to really participate and sort of fulfill your passion and interest that you might have in one of the global problems and issues. Well, my last remark before I close, this is a poster that I came across when I visited Harvard University, and I guess it was from the School of Divinity, so it probably has some religious feel to it. But I really like this poster because this is what describes the Global Affairs program too, in a way. Basically, you need to find what you love, but what you're good at, and what the world needs, and that you can be paid for. So basically, if you found a job that fulfills all these four purposes, that means you have succeeded in your life. That basically comes with the term passion, mission, profession, and vocation. Now, what I want to actually tell you as my last remark, students, I hope you will find your passion and mission in global affairs. And I will close my lecture here. Thank you very much.